Hello and welcome to the Dose of Wellness podcast. Today we're talking about something that sounds simple but has a profound impact on our mental and physical health, and that's gratitude. When people hear the word gratitude, they often think about journaling and writing things down. But modern psychology and neuroscience shows us that gratitude is much more than a positive mindset. It can influence the way we process stress, our emotional resilience, our relationships, and even our sleep. There's a growing curiosity in how our thoughts influence our health and how small daily practices can create meaningful change.
Joining us today is Rola Chamoun, co-founder of PsychWell Consultants and passionate advocate for holistic wellbeing. Thank you for joining us today, Rola.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to speak to both of you today about gratitude. It is a very powerful tool to use. It's very underestimated and it means more than what we think it is. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Let's start with something I think a lot of us can relate to. Why am I always stressed? It feels like we live in a world where we have more technology, more convenience, and more connection than ever before. Yet so many people struggle with this and feel overwhelmed. What's actually happening?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question. And I remember at school teaching us that in the future, when there's more technology, we're going to have more free time. But actually, it's the paradox is that's not what's actually happened. Modern life has, while there's been lots more conveniences, also created a lot more stresses for us. And there are several reasons. And those reasons are, we constantly have information overload, whether it's from your phone, from emails, from social media. So we're constantly distracted and there's constantly a lot of information coming our way. Another one is we're constantly comparing ourselves as people to others, what others have and what we don't. So we're very much distracted by that as well. There's 24 accessibility to everything. Everything's at your fingertip, whether it's I need to, I feel like eating this. You can just order it online, or whether you want to watch something. So we're constantly distracted. There's also a lot of uncertainty and change. Life, if we look at it today, there's a lot of international things going on, but as well as in Australia. So there's a lot of stresses around us. We just don't know what next week or even next year looks like. So there's a lot of uncertainty around us, and that can also increase stress. And then the big one is lack of recovery time. So we tend to find that we're so busy, but even come on weekends, we work on Monday to Friday, or for those who do shift work, when they do have a day off, or for those who do Monday to Friday, the weekend, then we're bombarded with school activities, school sports, or whether it's you've got to have a second job, or, you feel like you need to get to the gym or really make use of your day because you have a day off, but then that exhausts you as well. So we're not having enough rest and recovery. And these are all compounding. I mean, there's so many more others as well, but these kind of talk about the gist of why we're so stressed.
I remember at school in year 12, we read this book and the theme was around instant gratification, and it was a futuristic novel, and I was like, but that's actually what's happening now. Like, we don't go to the shops anymore. Like, I can just order all my Coles deliveries. Everything can just come instantly without having to stop outside.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so our brain didn't evolve that way. Our brain does need rest. We do need to sleep. We do need to have downtime. Without downtime, we don't recover. So we don't get all the hormones in the body back to a basis. And we naturally go into fight flight because that's something that's been inherited through evolution through our generations. And so we do go into fight, flight or freeze. And I mean, the remedy for that is to activate the parasympathetic system, which is our recovery part of the body, which helps us to recover. And we're just not doing that. So we tend to find that we're constantly stressed, what we call chronic stress, and we're just not having any downtime to downregulate that and rejuvenate. So, traditionally we might have something stressful happen called acute stress, and we deal with it on the spot. It might go for a week. You probably remember when we were studying, you'd go through study weeks, now you're really stressed. All this cortisol and all this adrenaline rushes through, and that really helps us to get through what we need to get through. But then after we finish our exams, we're kind of like, we're on holiday, right? And then we go have fun.
About it.
And then we go have fun. We either go on a holiday overseas or we start hanging out with our friends and just doing fun things. And that allows the nervous system to downregulate and we have that break. But that's not happening now.
Anymore.
It's just constant stress. So it's constant chronic stress across.
So we think we have a stress problem, but really we just have a brain doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Well, we're guiding the brain, aren't we? By all the demands and everything we're taking on. We're sort of not allowing the brain to do what it needs to do, which is recover as well.
So how does stress affect the body?
Oh, it affects the body in many ways. So people don't realise just what stress does. It affects top to bottom, like from top down to your toes. So it affects blood pressure. It affects our sleep. It affects mood. It affects our eating, our circadian rhythm, our sleep-wake cycle. It affects our focus and attention, regulating our our emotions. It affects the heart health. It can even affect fertility. So it can affect absolutely everything. And when we already live in such a distracted world where we're also not eating well, we're too busy to even eat well, and then you've got cortisol and adrenaline racing through the body. So how's the body going to recover or even repair? It also causes a lot of anxiety. So when we talk about mood, we're talking about anxiety in particular, but also it can cause depression, fatigue. And when you're fatigued, you just feel really exhausted, and then you start to feel really down about that, right? So it becomes like a vicious cycle. So this leads to that. It also can affect our immune system. So we tend to find when you've been really, really, I don't know if this has happened to anyone out there, when you've been really, it happens to me actually all the time. I'm so busy at work. I get on a plane to go recover, and then I get a cold and a flu.
Yeah.
Because it actually impacts our immune system as well.
Yeah. Every time we go on a holiday, or even just one public holiday, my husband's body just breaks down. He's either gets like a flu, or his back goes out. We spend that public holiday with him in bed.
The other thing, it also affects our ability to digest food. And if we're not digesting food properly, then our digestive system isn't doing what it needs to do. You know? We end up having bathroom issues, toilet issues. Sorry to mention that, but it's a thing, right?
Yeah, because serotonin is produced in the gut, so a lot of it comes from there.
And then we look at the small and large intestine and what they need to do. And then our nutrients and minerals don't get extracted properly. They're the building blocks for our cells of our body. Over 90% of serotonin is produced in the stomach. We're not breaking down food, or we're not eating the right foods. We're not going to get, and for those who don't know what serotonin is, it is the hormone that's responsible for our mood, for feeling good. So if we're not producing it, and it gets produced 90% of it in the stomach, then what's happening? So stress affects all of that.
I think a lot of people can relate to feeling exhausted but unable to switch off, or unable to have that rest, and ends up coming out in ways we don't want, like snapping at our loved ones when they're just breathing too heavily, or just annoying for no reason.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that comes back down to self-regulation, right? And then the body, if the fight, flight and freeze, people, like I said, mentioned before, people don't talk about freeze a lot, but if that gets it's a thing as well. When that gets activated, now we're either about to fight, we're about to freeze, or
to die.
And because we don't
die.
realise what we're actually dealing with is not as bad as what we think it is. But because we're so fatigued and we're so stressed, now we're reading threat very differently. So we get an email, our boss has asked for something. We see that as overwhelming. Now that's a threat, but really it's just we don't have the capacity just to address that right now. So then we go into that fight, flight, anxiety rises. Our cup's already full. I use a metaphor all the time, and the cup is already full. All that's going to happen is when you tip a bit more, it's going to overtip. Now you're overflowing, and that's when you feel overwhelmed. So we've got to constantly try and empty that cup, even on days when you're not working, and that's what I talk about, rest and relaxation. We've got to empty that cup. That cup doesn't empty unless we're recovering. So everything becomes a threat for us, whether it's an email, whether it's that phone call, someone asking for something, whether now you've got another invitation you've got to go to, or you've got a bill to pay, or there's
very overwhelming.
It becomes so overwhelming, and now our cup's overflowing.
And we're supposed to be enjoying those moments of
And so if we don't treat stress as something that we really need to get under control, or we need to have a different attitude towards it, it's always going to control us.
Let's talk about overthinking. I'm someone that struggles with that. Why does our brain get stuck in those loops?
So overthinking, a lot of people don't know this, but on a daily basis, humans and the human brain can have anywhere in the vicinity of 60 to 80,000 thoughts.
Wow.
So this is something neuroscience has been able to teach us and show through research. And a lot of it's in the subconscious, so a lot of it's not in awareness. By default, due to our caveman ancestors and just through evolution, we have something called a negativity bias. We will think negatively before positively. So just keep that in mind.
It's not just me.
Yeah, it's not just you, it's even me. So just keep that in mind. And then we're having 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, right? Now, the other thing neuroscience has been able to show is that we repeat these thoughts. So if we've got a negative bias, we're having 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of them are on repeat. Imagine how negative we are. So this is the negative brain. So overthinking is because we have no choice. We will overthink, right? But it's about how do we recognize what we're thinking about and what we do with it.
Sometimes it's not, like, you're not thinking for a solution. You're just thinking about the same thing over and over and over. Like you're not sorting anything out.
That's the repetition from day in, day out. And so we call that ruminating. So in psychology, we call that ruminating, when we're constantly always going over the same thing. Or it's almost like you've got a broken record and you constantly got that broken record over and over. So we're hearing the same thing every day. And what we do know is we hear the same thing every day. Guess what? Neuroscience has also been able to show us what we think becomes a part of our personality, which then becomes our reality. So think of that. So if we're having the same thought every day, well, we're just going to start believing that.
Yeah.
And then so we live our life that way, which is our personality. And that's how, our personality are made up of beliefs and ideas and concepts that define us. So that's our personality.
Becomes who you are.
Becomes who you are, and then they're the choices we make in life, and we end up living that particular life. So it really is about starting to understand what your thoughts are saying to you and what we do with that, okay? And unfortunately with anxiety, what is anxiety? We have stress. Now anxiety increases, and anxiety is worrying, all right? You perceive a threat in the environment, but it is also about having worrying thoughts, fearful thoughts. And then so if we're overthinking and we're having these fearful thoughts and worrying thoughts, well, we're going to start living like that. We're not going to leave the house. I'm too scared to drive. I'm too scared to do that. I'm too scared to get on a plane. So it ends up starting to control us, right? So overthinking, we all do it, but it's about understanding what the thoughts are saying and what we do with them next.
And some people have them more than others.
Yeah, and why is that? Like I said, we all have anywhere between 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Why do some people have more than others? It's because we focus on them.
Focusing on them.
So it is about what we focus on. Being an optimist and being a positive person. Some people are born with it, but it's something that can be developed.
Okay.
There's a study, I can't tell you what it's called, but it's a study that I had to look at when I was doing one of my master's degrees, and it was teaching people how to play the piano when they've never touched a piano. But what they got them to do is watch it on a YouTube video, and then they would sit there and rehearse it in their mind, and then all of a sudden they could play the piano.
Wow.
So what the other thing neuroscience has also taught us is that if we visualize something, tennis players do this, they rehearse hitting the perfect shot. Golfers do it. Cricketers do it. They sit there and they rehearse in their brain the perfect pass or the perfect, hitting the ball.
Like they keep imagining it?
They keep visualizing it
So
over
interesting.
and over and over. And then they just go out and do it because the brain cannot tell the difference between a visualization or whether it's happening in real time. So if you visualize yourself sitting on the beach on a tropical island and you're feeling sitting in the sun and you just start to brings on that relaxation, the brain doesn't know that you're not really there.
Oh, wow. So interesting.
Right? This is why meditation and visualizations are so important as part of treatment and working with stress, give you that rest and relaxation, and also working with anxiety.
Brain is amazing.
And there's a lot we don't know about it
still
still.
a lot. Yeah, a lot of people always looking for ways to reduce their stress naturally. But in addition to supplements like L-theanine, inositol, and ashwagandha or magnesium, what are other ways that we can reduce that stress naturally?
Look, I think for me, when I'm working with clients who have anxiety, I love giving strategies. I love to do, and clients want strategies, but calm the body. So calming the body. So yes, vitamins are great for that. So that's great. Natural supplements are great for that. But deep breathing. So, the breath is your anchor. So think of a ship or a boat in a storm. What keeps it from sinking or from being swept away is the anchor. So you've got to think of the breath as your anchor as well. So the breath is what will actually feel grounded. What we want to do in times of stress and anxiety, and if you think of a storm and you think of the eye of the storm and you're just standing in the middle and the storm is happening around you, that's what we want. So you want to feel grounded, you want to feel anchored. And the way we do that is the breath. So there's a couple of different types of strategies for deep breathing. There's diaphragmic breathing, box breathing. There's the 4-7-8, which you breathe in for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. So there's different types of breathing techniques that you can do. You just got to find the one that works for you, right? But what I do know is that we've become a society of shallow breathers. So we breathe into the chest, and we've become a society of fast and quick breathers, right? So we don't belly breathe anymore. The oxygen's not getting down to the abdomen. We know it needs to get there because that's how it circulates into the bloodstream, which then gets circulated to all the organs of the body, and then it calms the body down, helps you catch your breath, helps the heart to stop racing. It helps those hot.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how just
Just deep breathing
breathing
can do that, right?
can change.
Yeah, so
the
the
way you
breath
feel.
is everything. So,
Yeah.
there's lots of things you can do for deep breathing, but even taking out, in the morning, waking up and just spending 2 minutes, a minute, just taking in deep breath will help you. So the breath is your anchor. You can do that anytime. No one even needs to know you're doing breathing.
Yeah.
So,
Unless it's loud.
unless it's loud, yeah. But there's also something called the dive reflex, which is you've probably seen a lot of people do cold plunge pools and cold shower. Yeah, so what that does, like a cold shower or
Give
even
me a heart
splashing, splashing cold water on your face, it just helps to reset.
It breaks your,
It helps to reset the nervous system from that fight-flight into just feeling calm. It just sort of helps disconnect, disconnect. So jumping in a cold pool or having, so I just suggest if you're at home and you're feeling highly anxious, honestly, jump into a cold shower for 5 seconds and jump back out.
Yeah, they say like a iced water bottle on the back of your neck.
But even just ice cubes, holding ice cubes in your hands, till your hands get numb, and that will reset you as well. So anything like that. There's also something called progressive muscle relaxation. So that's really good because with anxiety comes a lot of frustration. Like you get angry at yourself for feeling this way, tensing up your whole body and letting go can also help release some of that frustration and anger you might have towards yourself because you're upset with yourself for feeling that way. So its first step is about calming the body down. And then the other one is what do we do with thinking, right? With that overthinking, right? Those anxious thoughts. So, really good things is about allocating yourself some worry time. So, have a worry journal. Write down all the thoughts that are worrying you and then ask yourself, are they
How
true?
severe are they?
Yeah.
Are they true?
Challenging.
What's the
Challenge. Challenge your thoughts.
What's the chance that will happen?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood? A really
Yeah.
good phrase is, how likely is this to happen? What's
Yeah.
highly unlikely?
Yeah.
And if it does happen, what's the worst outcome?
For people who are afraid of flying, if we have a look at statistics, the statistics are so small in a plane having a crash compared to driving on the road, right? So ask yourself, how likely is it that the plane's going to crash? Your reply will be highly unlikely. There's a lot of things we can say to ourselves to correct that thinking. So what are the thoughts? And what are they convincing me? What are they saying to me? What are they doing? How are they bossing me around?
Yeah.
That's a
'Cause
good
they
way
are.
of putting it.
Yeah, they're bossing us around. And how true are they? This is where you now need to be you got to advocate for yourself. Well, it's not true. Or when has this happened before? Well, it hasn't happened. Remember, 60 to 80,000 thoughts, we have a negative bias and they're on repeat. We've got to remember that. And if we can try and remember that, then we try to disconnect. So diffusing from them, disconnecting.
Recognizing when it
them.
happens and how to break it up.
Yeah, I feel the other thing that's really, really important with thinking is how do we become an observer of the thought rather than becoming the thought? So this is a different way to look at it because, I'm scared. Now, not only am I scared, I start to feel scared in the body, right? Now you start to feel
Your heart's pumping.
the heart pumping. You start
Can't
to
breathe.
feel all the physiological things that come with that thought because a thought, we have the thought, but we end up with an emotional response to that thought. And then the behaviour comes after that, right? So how do we start to become an observer of the thought rather than becoming the thought? So that's mindfulness. So which leads us into starting to develop a mindfulness practice or having some mindfulness strategies around how do I coexist with my anxiety? Because anxiety doesn't have to be bad. We can actually use it. It can benefit us if we know how to become friends with it and use it to our benefit.
I think I'm coming to see you.
So noticing, like this is where I say, I'm curious. Why am I having this thought? I haven't had this thought in a long time. Isn't this interesting? I'm having this thought, but I'm still going to go do what I wanted to do. So it's about recognizing we're having these thoughts, right? And which leads me into mindfulness. So mindfulness and grounding are really important in working with our thinking as well. So, there's a strategy. It's called the 3-3 rule. If you're highly anxious, your heart's pumping, you feel like you can't do what you need to do, you need to calm yourself down, bring yourself back to the present moment because all we have is the present moment. One thing, if your listeners can take away from today is when we think about anxiety is fear-based. So it's about what could happen. Yeah. So it's about the future. In terms of depression, it's like, I should have done this, I should have done that, I can't believe this happened.
The past.
It's the past.
Yeah.
Right? So, depression's a past, anxiety's a future. But what do we have? Present moment. So let's bring ourselves back to the present moment. So it's a grounding practice, 3 things I can see. 3 things. So bring yourself back to the moment. I can see this, I can see that.
What can I smell?
What can I smell?
Yeah.
3 things I can smell. Right? Or 3 things I can feel. Now, if you're in an office, it's about activating our 5 senses, right? Sense of touch, taste, smell, vision, and hearing. But if you're sitting in a small office or you're sitting in your bedroom, well, you can't taste anything, can't smell anything, do the other three. What can I feel? What can I hear? What can I see? If you're in the kitchen, what can I taste? What can I smell? What can I feel? So ask yourself three things for one or two or five of your senses, and then go, well, what are two things that I can see or feel or hear now that are different to before? What's one thing that's different to before? Just to reconnect you back to the present moment so that you feel, okay, I can do this now. All right, so this is where mindfulness is really, really important, and grounding is really, really important.
So you mentioned how you can use anxiety in a positive way. Can you talk a bit more about that? Because I don't really understand.
Yeah, sure. So, we always look at anxiety as something terrible. We look at it as, I must be afraid of something, or I'm worried about something, right? What if we used that feeling or that thought to help us plan, organise, get on top of things? Anxiety can be kind of like a prompt for us to look at something a little bit differently. So think of exams. Your child says to you, I'm so worried, I'm so scared. Okay, well, let's use that fear to help us make sure we're on top of everything.
Yeah. To start studying.
Yeah, so anxiety is an alarm system, right? But the alarm system doesn't necessarily have to mean something terrible is going to happen. It's an alarm system. What's it alerting us about? And then we can go and go, okay, well, it doesn't mean something terrible is going to happen. It means that I need to be on top of this. So that's how we can use anxiety. I mean, if we think about this is a totally different topic, but if we look at overachievers tend to have a lot of anxiety, but they're overachieving because of that anxiety. So they've learnt how to use that anxiety, even though they might feel as debilitating at different points in their life for other reasons. But when it comes to achieving, whether it's at work or in their professional careers or whatever it is they're doing,
helping.
that's a challenge.
Yeah.
They're actually using it for their benefit.
Yeah.
So that's how we can befriend our anxiety. So it's an alarm system. We just don't want that alarm to kind of
Be going off all the time.
Yeah, it's a prompt.
Yeah.
When you see it as a prompt, an alarm system, it's like your alarm goes off on your phone, you've got to get out of bed. So what's this alarm telling me?
Yeah. Got to do something. Yeah.
Okay, so we can use it in a different way. I also want to add in terms of strategies, exercise. So exercise, when we talk about the body and we talk about calming the body down. And this is the thing with exercise. It's people assume if you're going to exercise, you have to go to the gym and do a cardio.
Yeah.
I hate cardio.
I hate cardio.
Oh, you'll never see me in a gym ever. I don't do cardio. I don't like that feeling of my heart.
Me too.
Especially when you've had anxiety and your heart's beating. You've had that heart racing and you've had that feeling, and then you go do a workout and
get
now
the
your
same
heart's
feeling.
racing.
Yeah.
It could actually trigger anxiety.
Yeah.
It just needs to be minimum of 20 minutes
Moving your
of
body.
activity, and then we release something beautiful in the body. What's it called?
Endorphins.
Yeah.
Our natural antidepressant.
Yeah.
I call it our natural antidepressant. So 20 minutes walking. If you've got a dog, walk your dog. Housework. So it could be anything that's just movement. Playing golf. Any kind of 20 minutes of consistent activity can start to release endorphins in the body and make you feel good.
And let's dive into the heart of today's conversation, which is gratitude. Research has consistently shown that practicing gratitude or counting our blessings has a huge impact on our well-being. Can we talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. So I love gratitude. So that's what we call a positive psychology strategy. So positive psychology is a school of thought within psychology that looks at how can we use positive things or good things that are going on in our lives to help us with our well-being. Because, psychology is always focused on everything that's going wrong.
Yeah.
What about we focus on things that are going well, and how can we use that, capitalize on that to help improve our well-being and our mood? So probably everyone thinks that gratitude is about saying thank you, being blessed and thankful for what we have. And that is a huge part of it. But it's more than that, because gratitude does other things. It actually helps us to create what we call positive emotions. So we all have emotions. It's what makes us humans. And emotions can be both negative and positive. Whereas gratitude is one of those emotions that actually helps us create more positive emotion. And we know positive emotions make us feel good. And if we feel good, then everything else, it's a roll-on effect. Life changes, right? So research has shown that it creates positive emotions for us. And I just want to say something about positive emotions. When we have a negative emotion, it feels really heavy, right? It feels really, really heavy, and it can linger around. And everyone can relate to this. When you feel down about something, it can last for days, or you can feel anxious about something, it can last for hours. So we know negative emotions feel heavy, they linger around, and they're just harder to shift. And so research has been able to show that you need 3 positive emotions to shift 1 negative.
Oh, wow.
How crazy is that?
So annoying.
Because positive emotions a bit more fleeting.
Yeah.
They don't feel as heavy. They're not as intense, but they feel good. But they pass by, right? They pass by much quicker. So gratitude is one of those emotions that we can use to counter negative emotions, right? Because it feels really good. So that's it's one thing. Also, a positive emotion is created from an experience with someone else because we're doing something when we talk
Making
about
memories.
Yeah. And also sometimes we do things for others to show our gratitude. It doesn't come from within. It's also in the case of an experience with someone else, which is fantastic, right? So this is why it's so important. It's such an important emotion and a concept for us to focus on. So neuroscience has been able to show it activates different parts. So when we engage in gratitude, it activates different parts of the brain. It activates the reward cycle, that part of the brain where dopamine gets released. It helps us to socially bond with people, and also it also helps us to expand our perspective taking, because I'll talk a bit more about that. What that means is that when we focus on the things that are going well in our life, we focus less on what's not going well. I'll talk a bit more about that because we do have a society of where we look at the glass half full and we're comparing ourselves, what others have and what we don't. What if we tip that around to, I've got all these things.
Yeah.
Right?
And that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, I've lost my job, but my family's healthy. So if we focus on the things that are going well, the things that are going right in my life, and giving focus to that, we tend to deal with the things that aren't going well much better. Okay, so that's where it helps to actually expand perspective taking and we become more reflective, which is really important. It also helps us to have more of a moral reasoning, which, when we think about moral reasoning, we're talking about my place in society and how grateful I am for the things that I have and how I can help others as well. So we give back. You've probably heard of the term pay it forward.
Yeah.
That falls in line with that the whole gratitude thing. Pay it forward. We start to do things for others.
You feel maybe blessed, so you want to also share that. But if
Yeah.
you're feeling negative about yourself, maybe you're not really that keen to help others.
Yeah. So when someone does something for you and you're so grateful for it, it makes you feel like you want to give others. And you do it not because you want to get something back in return.
Yeah.
You just do it without an expectation, but you feel really good. And that's that positive emotion. This is why gratitude is really important and why it's different, because we get the feeling of that positive emotion just by doing things for others and other people doing things for us. So that's why it's so important.
Yeah, gratitude really shifts our attention.
It
from
really,
the negative
really does.
to more positive.
Yeah, because, comparison is massive. We do compare ourselves a lot and we do look and remember, negative bias. We're likely to think about what things aren't going well in our life before we think about something that's going well. So we really, by practicing gratitude, we're actually shifting our mindset and we're starting to develop optimism, or we're starting to develop more of a more healthier way of thinking. It counters overthinking, which is what we spoke about before, which then helps anxiety and depression.
That's really important because people think gratitude is just about being happy all the time. But no. What you've just explained,
And then what also is fascinating about it is that it helps to train the brain to notice what's going right, then what's going wrong, which is what I was talking about. So a gratitude practice, you can engage in a gratitude practice, say, for 3 months, and you start to shift the brain from thinking about everything well that's going on in your life. You start to feel good. And then you stop after 3 months. Research has shown that even 6 months after that, you still feel good.
Oh, wow.
We've changed those neural pathways in the brain.
Our brain.
So it's all about the repetition, right? It's just constantly doing it over and over and over. So if you're retraining your brain to think about all the things that are going well, you're just going to start thinking about, what's that say? Thinking about through rose.
Looking through rose-coloured glasses.
You start to do that in life, right? And then,
I love that.
Yeah. So and this is where people say to me, why are you always so happy? Why are you always so positive? Well, I'm not. I still have a lot of stress and I still deal with those challenges. But I'm also mindful of all the things that are going well as well.
Yeah, me too.
So which then helps me to balance that out.
Yeah.
So I'm not ignoring the challenges.
Yeah, but you're not focusing on them, fixated.
And a really good way to think about that is that it doesn't matter what challenge, there'll always be a solution. It might not be the solution you want because life doesn't always happen the way we want it to. So there'll always be an outcome of some sort. Might not be the outcome you want, but everything gets resolved. In the end, it might not be your way, but it will. So always know.
Over. Yeah.
Nothing's permanent. Oh, this is the other thing that I didn't mention about. It's not permanent. Nothing's permanent. Everything's impermanent. So what you're feeling now won't be what you're feeling next week. Everything resolves at the end of the day. It might not be your way, but if we focus on what we do have, it makes dealing with those much easier.
Faith can come into it too. Like God sometimes may give us those challenges so that
for those who have faith in their life and have God in their life, they can look at it that way. For those who believe in something bigger than themselves, like some sort of spiritual connection, they can think of it in that way as well. And for those who don't believe in a God, but, can still use gratitude in that way. Gratitude doesn't have to be in a spiritual or faith-based way. It is a positive emotion. It can really reach everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. And I also want to make a distinction between gratitude and toxic positivity. There's probably a term floating around. It's not about saying, oh, everything's going to be okay, don't worry about it, just be grateful for what you have. Yeah. It's not about that. Positivity is something. Positivity is not trying to, people sort of encourage their friends, come on, you can do this, think about all that you have, and that's toxic positivity, right?
It's kind of belittling really the challenge.
It's about acknowledging what the challenge is. It's about saying, this is how I feel, this is what's happening, this is what's within my control, what's not within my control, and I know this needs to be resolved, but all I have is the present moment. And so right in this moment, I'm going to focus on something that's going on right now that's good for me. I just had coffee with my sibling this morning. What a wonderful opportunity to do that. When we have that little bit of a circuit breaker, we reduce cortisol and adrenaline. We give the nervous system a little moment to reboot. I was talking about the cup being over full. These little things, like having this morning off from my practice this morning and coming in to speak to you ladies is a circuit breaker for me.
Yeah.
So, I've got lots of beautiful positive emotions going on for me right now. So this is all part of making sure that cup is not always full. So taking those little moments in your day of having a gratitude practice or focusing on something that's going well doesn't mean we're ignoring everything else.
Yeah.
That's all still there.
Part of life. Yeah.
I also want to clarify that there is a science behind gratitude. There's a lot of research, evidence-based research, peer-reviewed research on gratitude. And what that shows is that people, after engaging in a gratitude practice, and I'm going to tell all your listeners, like, one really easy gratitude practice that they can do is, the research does show greater happiness, better self-regulation, so being able to cope with challenges better. So more resilience, increase in resilience, less burnout, better mood management. So we're not saying it cures mood, but you manage challenges much better in your life. It improves sleep and also immune system and body health as well. So that this is the science behind gratitude. And probably the simplest gratitude practice is something that you would do daily. You can buy beautiful journals to do it in. There's lots of gratitude journals, but it's about 3 good things. And so it's something you do in the evenings. So I always recommend to do it at night before you go to bed, because if you go to sleep on a good note, you'll wake up on a good note. And it is about identifying 3 good things that happened to you that day. And it could be the most simplest things. It could be, I'm excited to meet my best friend today. I haven't seen her in months, and that's one good thing. And it's not just about identifying what that good thing was. It is about also identifying the positive emotion you felt with that good thing. So this happened, but I felt loved, or I felt joy. Or when you pick up your child from school and your child said, Mum, I had a really great day. That's something to be grateful for. And how did that make you feel? It made you feel fulfilled because, as a parent, you're doing all the right things. Yeah. So it's about matching that positive emotion you experienced with that one thing you identified as happening good. Now, if you do that every night, what we're doing is we are creating positive emotions. We're feeling it in the body, so it has a kind of a physiological feeling, and then you're going to bed. Yeah. With the last thing on your mind, rather than ruminating about your stresses and then you have a nightmare and then you wake up stressed in the morning, you're actually going to bed with good things that happen to you. Yeah. This is how we change the brain.
I actually bought all my boys a little journal like that. Yeah. They're still sitting on the bench, but I'm going to start them tonight. I'm going to start them tonight. Talk to them about 3 good things that happened in their day.
Make it simple things like, the food that they ate. So keep it really simple. One of the things I'm grateful for every single day is my coffee that I buy in the morning.
Oh, me too.
It's my little treat. And I just feel like, it feels like home because I can't explain it. Yes, it makes me feel good.
Same. Yeah. I now have to plan all my holidays around if there's good coffee in that country. Because I went to Canada. There was no good coffee in Canada. And I really felt a bit of depression. A bit of depression because I didn't have that little bit of relief. It just makes me so happy. Yeah. So I don't know.
So 3 good things, 3 positive emotions. We need 3 positive emotions to shift a negative emotion. And from the research on positive emotions, it's called the 3-to-1 ratio. So if you do that activity in the evenings, you're generating 3 beautiful positive emotions. It shifts a negative one. You go to sleep. You wake up feeling better. You have better sleep. It allows you to sleep, so it also improves broken
sleep faster. go to sleep faster. Yeah.
Let's clear up some common myths around stress, gratitude, and anxiety. The first one is, if I'm stressed, it means I'm not coping.
Not true. So we're all going to feel stress. We're humans. So please don't think that's the case. Stress can be something that can be used in a positive way. It just shows us that something matters and we need to do something about it.
Okay, myth number 2. Overthinking means I'm being productive.
Okay, so this is one of the biggest misconceptions. Problem solving is being productive. Overthinking the same thing over and over isn't.
Number 3, gratitude means ignoring negative emotions.
All right, that's absolutely false. So we're not going to feel grateful every day either unless we intentionally want to feel grateful. No, it doesn't mean that at all. We will still have negative emotions. There's still going to be a lot of stress. What we need to do is just keep recognizing that things are still good while things are not going so good on this side. It's about the balance.
The next myth. Small habits cannot change mental health.
Well, that's not true. So it's a small habits and it's definitely change mental health, but it's about the repetition of them. It's about doing them, creating a consistent daily practice. So small habits is actually what are the things that change our mental health and help us maintain it.
So for someone listening who feels constantly stressed and overwhelmed, what's one thing they can take away today?
Ask yourself 2 simple questions. What's worrying me right now? What's stressing me right now? Okay? Identify what it is, name the emotion that goes with it, and just be aware of that. And then ask yourself, well, what is one thing that's supporting me right now? What do I have in my life right now that can actually support me? We want to focus on the things that, that glass half full metaphor, where there are a lot of things that are going right. There are a lot of good people around me that can support me. But it's just about naming and identifying what's not going well and reminding yourself there's a solution for everything. It might not be what you want, but there is.
I love that because it feels so achievable.
Rola, thank you so much for joining us today on such an important topic. I'm sure we've both learnt so much, so will our listeners.
Thank you
I feel like I had a session.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful sitting here with both of you.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone for listening to Dose of Wellness today. Make sure to like, subscribe and comment so you don't miss the next episode.